Welcome back to When Sports Met Sarcasm. The Australian Open is over, but Super Bowl 60 is upon us. And for anyone that doesn't know about the Super Bowl, it's got this much football, this much crap and commercials. But handicapping is handicapping. So what we had to find here in the Super Bowl was data points on each team that I could find and work off of. A lot of data to go through. We're going to go through Drake Maye's rushing yards. We're going to go through Sam Darnold's passing yards. We're going to go through the defensive change that was made by Sean McDermott from Buffalo after the first game they played the Patriots, which they lost. They saw something in that tape that they exploited in that second matchup, which they ended up winning. And that is one of the data points I saw when I was going through the Patriots schedule is Drake Maye, for some reason, the first 14 weeks, threw for 200 yards. Easy. All of a sudden, he gets to week 15 against Buffalo, and it seems like he was seeing ghosts. So that's something I'm going to go through. We don't got a lot of time to waste. We got so much data to go through. Let's go. All right. Now, on the other side, Seattle. What I was trying to find is Seattle in the regular season, if they faced anybody who had a excellent run defense, but not the best basically pass defense or rush defense to sack the quarterback. I did find that, and luckily it was when Seattle played Jacksonville. Jacksonville's got a great rush defense, and they're not very good against the pass. They can't rush the quarterback that well, which is kind of like with the Patriots. Even though the Patriots lately, they have upped their blitz rate like crazy in the playoffs, so they have got a lot more pressure. But as we're going to go through here, the Patriots' schedule is so fraudulent. They played Denver in the playoffs, which was really their only decent pass blocking line that they faced in the playoffs. The Chargers' offensive line was basically plucked from the practice squad, and we all saw that Houston Texans game. So the one thing I'm going to show you here in the bottom, I talked about the Drake Maye stuff, week 15, Buffalo. He implemented, well, first of all, in the first game, he did play a little bit of cover 6. I want to say it was maybe 3 snaps of cover 6. Now, he must have saw in that game tape when they were going to face the Patriots the second time that for some reason the cover 6 was the best coverage that they had, even though it was only 3 snaps on defense. They upped that to basically 50% in their game plan and won. And not only that, but confused Drake Maye so much that going forward, every team that basically didn't have a head coach who was a defensive guy basically bit off of Sean McDermott's Buffalo game plan here and implemented a lot of cover 6. That following game was the Ravens, who never really played cover 6. They played a ton of cover 6. And if Lamar Jackson didn't get hurt, they probably could have won that game. So let's move in here to all the stats of the defensive ranks. This is why I compared this. Here we go. Defensive ranks, 11-8, 8-4. Now here, pass, 21 for the Jaguars, 9 for the Patriots. That 21 for the Jaguars is fair. That 9 for the Patriots is not. And I'm going to show you in this next graphic who the Patriots have faced as quarterbacks this year. Wait until you see this list. Like we said, the rush. Jacksonville, the best against the rush. New England's great against the rush. Sacks, that's why we're doing this. Red zone, how about the 30th in the league for the Patriots on the red zone? Good thing, another caveat. Good thing for the Patriots, Sam Darnold's one of the worst passers in the red zone. And if you think that New England's going to stuff the run, if you can't throw it in, and you can't run it in, that gets very interesting. Here are the list of the quarterbacks that the vaunted New England Patriots defense has faced. Look at these studs. Brady Cook, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Spencer Rattler. All these people didn't even play after that. Spencer Rattler was benched. Bryce Young threw for like 200 yards only in like 4 games this year. Justin Fields literally could not throw. I think he threw for 60 yards against the Patriots. Zach Wilson, Tyler Huntley in that second half. Didn't even have to face Burrow. Got Jake Browning. Lamar Jackson for a half. That Baker Mayfield game they won, that's when the Tampa Bay was starting their slide. Obviously, they lost one of the 2 games to Josh Allen. They actually lost to Geno Smith. But, I mean, come on. That's who the defense is facing. If these people are throwing against you, you better be top 10 against the pass. So here we go. These are the exact statistics. The rush defense, 1st and 6th, and then the team defensive sacks. Now, like I told you before, the Patriots have upped their blitz rate and therefore has upped their pressure rate. But with blitzing, It's catch-22. So we're going to go through this, analyze this game, because we want to see what happens when Seattle goes up against a rushing defense that is very tough, but can pass on them. Here is that game script. First of all, I'm going to show the green check marks because this is what I wanted to show. A 3.1 average yard per carry in that game. Let's look at Travis Etienne. 12 carries, 2.3 average. Not good. Byshell Tutin, 2 for 14. Now, let's look at the receiving here. Now, this is our first data point. Jacksonville. Travis Etienne, 4 catches, 5 targets. Byshell Tutin, 2 catches, 3 targets. Even LaQuint Allen, 1 catch, 10 yards, but 2 targets. So you got 5 targets from Travis Etienne. You got 3 targets from Tutin, and you got 2 from Allen. You get 10 targets to the running backs because they weren't able to run the ball. Now let's look on the other side, because I am going to be focusing a lot on Seattle. The first 12 weeks of the year, which this would include this, as you can see the records, they really didn't throw to the backs. They probably threw to the backs 31st in the league. So they didn't throw to the backs at all, basically. This was part of that game. Now, I am going to show you a quote, though, which shows, I think, after this game, Sam Darnold kind of had it click in his mind of, wow, I don't got to be a hero. I can just be a game manager, maybe a Trent Dilfer, since you got a defense now, and you don't got to throw 3 picks like you did against the Rams early on. And I want to say against the Bucks as well. So here we go. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at attacking that Seahawks defense through the air with the backs. That's where we want to attack this. So here we go. I'm just going to read his quote. So this was after the game. Sam Darnold, I told myself I was going to take what they give me. And if they give me a check down, take it, said Darnold, whose late interception last week proved costly. I was right, against Tampa. I felt like I did a pretty good job of that. So the one thing I like here is that he's finally clicked in his head, I don't got to be a hero. And they literally grind it out like a 20-12 win. And if I go back to actually show you the box score, Sam Darnold threw for a lot of yards, but if you actually look and see, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, long, 61. How about A.J. Barner had a 61-yard catch? And Jaxon Smith-Njigba had 13 targets. But the whole point of that exercise to realize that Sam Darnold is, at least in his head, knows I can take sacks. I can punt. It's not the problem. Don't turn it over. Okay, now here's the defense of that game, the defensive box score. So remember we said Jacksonville, they can stuff the run, but can they get after the quarterback? Proven here they can't. 1 sack, 4 QB hits. Vice versa. Let's go to the Seattle defense here. 7 sacks, 17 quarterback hits. Night and day difference. So the problem, we need to see what's going to happen because Jacksonville can stuff the run, but they can't stop the pass. This is going off of Sam Darnold's check down quote. We figured we'd take 3 of the most important games, the one that was for the number 1 seed in the NFC, and then the playoff games. Kenneth Walker, 4 targets. Zach Charbonnet, 4 targets. Next round, blowout city. Still, Kenneth Walker got 3 targets, 3 catches, 29 yards. That was the game that Zach Charbonnet got injured. Fast forward here to the NFC Championship. That's why we see George Halani. George Halani ran, I want to say, 20-plus routes. Almost the exact same number of routes as Kenneth Walker in that game. And he would have had an extra catch on top of that, on top of his 4 targets, because he tripped coming outside of tripped over a lineman, basically going out for his pass, which it looked like was going to go to him. So George Halani's on the field. George Halani actually runs routes. Now, I'll get into just one quick thing for anybody who thinks, oh, well, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, what's going to happen with him? Are they going to put Christian Gonzalez on him and have him follow him around? I don't see that happening. I watched the Rams NFC Championship. They put Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the backfield with Kenneth Walker or George Halani. And the reason why they did that is Sam Darnold would motion him out, get a look at the defense if it's in man or zone. And then that was one way that they didn't have to have him on the edge and then get him the ball. They really didn't throw him the ball too much out of those sets, but just to know that Jackson Smith-Njigba can be in the backfield, there's no way Christian Gonzalez is going to follow him around like that. I do think, as we're going to go into more of this, is the Patriots play a lot of zone. I mean, a lot of man, but they don't want to play man against Jackson Smith-Njigba and Sam Darnold because that's what they excel at, man. So you'll probably see a lot more zone. Especially. All right, here we go. Seattle running back targets. Remember I talked about in the beginning of the season when I showed you that game plan, Zach Charbonnet had 1 catch and Kenneth Walker had 1 catch, and you're probably like, why would you target the running backs? They don't even throw to them. That's stupid. Here we go. They figured out first 12 weeks, they only targeted the running backs at a 7.8% clip. 32nd in the league. Nobody worse than that. Now, let's go to week 13 on. Now they're targeting the running backs 21% of the time. They now have become a top 2 offense to the running backs. I guarantee you, his numbers at like maybe 22.5, Kenneth Walker. I guarantee you if Bijan Robinson was in the Super Bowl right now and his receiving yards prop was 22.5, everyone would be going over. He's even in front of Jahmyr Gibbs. Since week 16, the Seahawks have averaged 54 yards per game to the running backs, only behind the 49ers and the Steelers. And if you really look into week 16, the 49ers had to play the Seahawks a couple times there. So they basically couldn't run the ball. So they had to throw it to Christian McCaffrey. And I think we also watched the Steelers. Towards the end of the season, you had the suspension to DK Metcalf that also made them throw to the backs because they didn't have the deep threat long field to stretch the field. So they were throwing to the backs. Kenneth Gainwell became like Jerry Rice. So now let's look and see how the Patriots D does against running backs. Of course, the Patriots faced the worst teams ever throwing to running backs. That's happened all year. Bengals, Dolphins twice, Browns, Raiders, Saints, Titans, Ravens. Basically, they faced 2 teams that could fog a mirror, and it was Pittsburgh, which we just talked about, and Atlanta, that we just talked about. 2 teams that can actually do it. Bijan Robinson had 8 catches for 50 yards. Warren, 5 catches, 34. Even Kenneth Gainwell, 1 for 10. In the playoffs, Seattle has been averaging 8.2 yards per attempt. 8.2. The 3 teams the Patriots played so far this postseason: Broncos with a rookie running back, Chargers, backup running back Vidal, Texans, rookie running back Marks. So this is a huge step up for the Patriots to defend the backs. Real quick, DraftKings odds, like we were talking about Helani and Walker, over. Helani, over. 1.5 seems pretty easy unless barring an injury. It is a lot of juice. Minus 146. You can always take Helani over 11.5. Then you're only laying 14 cents. Now, we're going to go to Rosalind real quick for a fake ad read. And then we're going to hop into Sam Darnold passing yards props. And we'll hop into Drake Maye rushing yards props. You ready, Rosalind? Rosalind, what about you? Are you a fan of the Super Bowl? I don't think you can say that. She said anything with balls. Rosalind for the fake ad read.
This break in the action is sponsored by Coca-Cola, the sugar drink that has helped increase the risk of type 2 diabetes to over 200 countries. Have a Coke, a tooth decayed smile, and a heightened risk of type 2 diabetes.
All right, data. Sam Darnold passing yards is set around 230.5. 7 times Sam Darnold has faced top 10 defenses against the run. One of them was the Jacksonville game. We just showed you that box score. 6 other instances, even though the Rams show up a couple times here. That 7-game sample, if I just include Sam Darnold playing against top 10 rush defenses, the average is 280, 129, and the median is 279. For anyone that isn't that much aware about player props, go with the median. The average is just, it can throw things off. And that's why you might even see on like DraftKings or FanDuel when they'll show you the average and it might be like Douglas over 12 and a half yards, and his average is like 16. So everyone's like, well, if his average is 16, how would you not go over 12 and a half? That's because it's the average. I guarantee you the median would probably be 12 and a half. So we go to the entire year. Mean, 237.7. We take nothing into equation. This is regular season, games, whatever. The mean is 237.79, and the median is 244, which you would say gives you roughly a 7-yard advantage to the over here. I am going to play the over on Sam Darnold just because I think they can't run the ball. And if you can't run the ball, there's only one other option. Now, this is one angle I haven't heard a lot of people talking about, which they should be. Everyone knows at the end of the game, you hear the phrase, oh, but they're going to run out the clock. Everyone, they're going to run out the clock. Well, what happens if you can't run? How do you run out the clock if you can't run? Seattle, NFC Championship. They had to throw out the clock because they also couldn't run. So Sam Darnold basically had to throw out the clock. Why am I bringing this up? Because we're talking about running back receptions, not running back rushes. We need receptions. And if you have to throw out the clock, that gives more opportunities to catch the ball from the backs. Also, if you have a game script or a game where neither team can run the clock out, it creates huge advantages for comebacks because you could have the ball up 6 and it looks like you're going to win. But if you don't get a first down, you have to kick it back to the other team. A lot of volatility when neither team can run the clock out. So, like we said, Sam Darnold over. Always look at the median instead of the mean. Now let's go to Drake Maye. We got his data set here. This is rushing yards. The reason why we're looking at this, number one, is everyone's taking the over. Drake Maye, over rushing yards. One of the most popular bets at DraftKings. Here is his data set for the whole season. All the way. So he had one game with 2 yards rushing. He had a couple with 12. Lately, as you can see in the playoffs, I want to say the 60s. He had 60, 10, 60. So, of course, everyone's like, wow, 39 and a half, that's a lot less than 60. Now, his mean and median, as I have highlighted here, for the whole year, his median is 23 and a half. So, not taking his recency bias into play, the line would be 23 and a half for his rushing yards. Now, you have to make an adjustment because obviously it's showing in the playoffs that they need him to run. And the reason why is because the wide receivers get no separation. And that's why back in that one game score graphic, I should have kept it up, was Matt Collins. Drake Maye is going to love Matt Collins. And the reason being, he's a big target. They don't have big targets, and they don't have people that can get separation. Stephon Diggs is basically like a 1 yard screen pass. His yards per air target is like maybe 1.5. Matt Collins is his go-to guy. It's his go-to guy. Actually, let me bring that graphic up real quick again. See if I can find it here. Let's see. Matt Collins. Oh, no, it's in the other one. Sorry about that. All right. Here we go. So we found out. Now, this is the one thing we're going to go into. This is why we actually like this. The uptick in the rushing yards in playoffs we've talked about. It's increased the line. It's one of the most popular wagers. Now, one thing that would come into play on a quarterback in a Super Bowl rushing the ball a lot. How about a shoulder injury? You want your number one quarterback with designed runs running around like Lamar Jackson in the Super Bowl with a shoulder injury? Also, this was from Sal Palantonio. He doesn't slide often, which is true when I went to back and look. He does dive, and when he dives leading with his right shoulder. We're going to find out a lot on that first run. Live wagering, whatever you're doing. Once you watch that, if he gets up, any of that, they're not going to want him to run at all. At all. The last thing they want to do is not have Drake Maye, who basically just came in second in MVP voting by 2 votes. So that's why you want to monitor his first run for any discomfort. Like I said, the designed run seemed doubtful with him. And then some people will say, oh, well, nowadays in the NFL, all you need to do is take a Toradol shot. And yes, Patrick Mahomes, remember when his run to the Super Bowl when they won, when he had that ankle injury, he did take the Toradol shot, and it wasn't an issue for him. He's also had experience with it. I'm not sure if Drake Maye's ever had a Toradol shot and how he would react to it. But for the people that are saying, just take a Toradol shot, that basically just confirms that he has an injury. And if he has an injury, do you want to run with a quarterback who has an injury? Okay. And let's go off here to the last two, the playoffs success. Those playoff success of the 60 yards and then the bad game against the Texans. Those were all when he wasn't injured or didn't have a shoulder injury hanging over his head. This also is at 39.5 right now. If it's a most popular wager right now, when we get to Sunday, it's a possibility it could go to 40.5. And if it does go to 40.5, that's when you want to take the under. Or maybe there's even juice on the over, and we can get a better price on the under. It's just something that you want to see. Now we're going to get into our bonus coverage that I talked about earlier. Drake Maye, looking great, 14 weeks. Wow, this guy's a passer. All of a sudden, boom, Sean McDermott's second game against Buffalo. What happened? Let's figure it out. Cover six. Cover six is what Sean McDermott figured out in the first game that worked against the Patriots. So in the second game, he played a lot of it. For people that don't know what cover six is, split field coverage, you got quarters and you got cover two. They split it. Now, Buffalo, like I said, implemented this in week 15. We already talked about Drake Maye's passing yards. 4 of his last 7 games since the switch in the coverage, he's thrown for under 200 yards. Seattle plays the highest percentage of cover six of all the playoff teams. And of all the teams in the league, I think it might be top 5. Now, the teams that they have played that have adjusted and used the cover six, they're not teams that played cover six. So they're kind of going out of their element. That was the problem. Seattle feels very comfortable in cover six. They play a lot of nickel too. They got defensive backs almost everywhere. So they do feel comfortable. And I'm going to show you this right here. So this is New England right here passing. Let's look at the team. Travion Henderson. This was the Buffalo game. This is the one where he faced cover six. The passing yards, 155. He was one of the most consistent passers all year with accuracy, 14 of 23. 1 pick. Receiving here. Look at him. Mac Hollins. The reason why he's going to Mac Hollins in these scenarios is because nobody else gets separation. Booty doesn't get separation. Douglas, not even on here. He gets no separation. Diggs get no separation. They just get no separation. So you can't keep throwing to people who don't get separation. So with Mac Hollins, he gets somewhat separation, but he's a big target, like we said. He threw to him 8 times. Led New England in passing. In receiving yards in this game when facing cover six. He's going to get a lot of targets. Do not take any wide receivers overs for the Patriots in the Super Bowl unless it's Matt Gandhi Hollins. There's no designation for an injury. He's not going to Dr. Scholl's or anything like that. He is the one that you want to target for the Patriots because he's going to be targeted. Now, let me show you this cover six rate chart. This is courtesy of Warren Sharp for anyone who wants to go out and look at the Sharp football stuff. I figured out that I saw the change in week 15. He figured out the coverage. Now, let's go through this early on. Look at this Buffalo game, week 5. Played 4 cover 6 snaps, right? It's such a copycat league, too. You'll see the teams who have a defensive head coach, like the Bucs and the Jets, and they stick with their guns. But then you go to the Bengals. They are watching tape of previous stuff, saying, "Oh, wow, looks like cover 6 actually did work a little bit." Then we get to the Buffalo game. 50% of cover 6 snaps, 13 cover 6 snaps, and we just saw the box score. Look how bad they copycat. Baltimore, they did it. They're not very good at it, and they didn't play it the whole season. But it had some success. Throw out the Jets and the Dolphins game, just pointless. Even the Chargers, who very rarely do it, the Texans and the Broncos all figured out, wow, this coverage does work. We have to use it. So as you can see, Sean McDermott, and they won that game, 35-31. So Seattle, like we said, they do play cover 6. So they're not going out of their element. The Patriots are walking into their element. Let's look at the splits for Drake Maye on cover 6. First man, 49% success rate, 9.2 yards per attempt. He's great against zone, not against cover 6, but he's great against zone. Look at here, 52% success rate, again, 9.2 yards per attempt. Good. Now we get to the cover 6, 5.9 yards per attempt. Where does this rank out of the 36 quarterbacks with 200 plus attempts? Man, great, 7. Zone, great, 1. Cover 6, 31st ranked quarterback in the league. He struggles with this coverage, and they disguise it well. Patriots running backs, they're going to be targeted. It's just how it's going to work. They can't throw to Matt Collins 35 times, and that's good. Ramondre Stevenson, he is going to be targeted, and targeted often. He's going to have to be the focal point. The question this comes down to, do you think the Patriots are going to run the ball in Seattle? I don't. I personally don't. And when that happens, I think they're going to have to throw to him. They're even fine putting Ramondre Stevenson as a wide receiver. Like I said, because their wide receivers can't get no separation. Travion Henderson, on the other hand, he's been in the doghouse. He's had like 3 snaps, I feel like, in the last like 3 games. And the reason being is they have zero faith in him pass blocking. Zero. It's like he's not even there. He does like Ghost Dad from Bill Cosby, Ghost Dad, but pass blocking coverage. You just go right through him. So focus on Ramondre Stevenson, over catches, over yards. And I almost want to look at Ramondre Stevenson or Matt Collins to be the Patriots wide receiver receiving leaders in this game. All right, let's look at a couple of long shot wagers now that we've gone through all those data points. Now, once again, right here, player to have longest reception in the game. I highlighted Henderson and I highlighted Helani just because Seattle, the teams that have faced Seattle's defense, I want to say 17 of the last 18 games, running backs they've had at least 2 running backs catch at least 1 catch. And we showed you in that Jaguars game that 2 and oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. Etienne. They had passes, and even the third running back did. Travion Henderson will probably get a catch. What he done was it? I don't know. You don't know. George Helani. He's going to be out there. He's going to get catches. I'm telling you. They're not going to be able to run the ball, so I mean, he's got a low rushing yards anyway, but he's going to be, he runs routes. And you could say, oh, well, he's not going to get as much play because it's the last game of the year, and Kenneth Walker, why would you give him so many breathers if there's no other game? Sometimes you don't like going off game script, and you don't want him getting hurt. Now, here is most receiving yards. I was trying to find Patriots most receiving yards. Ramondre Stevenson, he's led the Patriots in receiving yards. And like I said, I just don't like any other receivers minus Matt Collins. And I don't know if Matt Collins is just going to get enough volume to lead, but those are the 2 people I want to focus on. And if I can find the most receiving yards per team, that's who I want to focus on, is Matt Collins and Ramondre Stevenson. Nobody else. Those are the 2 people that you focus on. Don't focus on any of these other bumps. All right. Last thing is, wait on Sundays if you're going to take unders. Usually bet overs now. The one thing I want everyone to know is, even when you go through all the data and you think that you got the greatest hand on whatever it is that you're going to do, you're going to get a curveball. Someone could get injured. Anything could happen. So that's gambling.
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 Gamble.
It's not gambling.
Sounds like gambling.
Gambling? Who said anything about gambling?
Gambling, right?
Gamble.
Gambling.
That's all you talk about is gambling, gambling, gambling.
All right. Thanks for watching. Hopefully all the data that you consumed will be able to get you some winners on Sunday. We're going to have Rosalind. You ready, Rosalind? I'm glad you didn't sleep this episode. We're going to have Rosalind take us out. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Thank you for tuning in to When Sports Met Sarcasm. The media that not only informs but entertains. Buy now.